Today, we are going to do some truth-telling about grief. I have selected 6 universal experiences of grief. And again, this comes from my own personal experience of loss and from supporting others in their grief. I'm Jo McRogers. Welcome to Grief Support That Works. I'm really glad that you found us today. Truth number 1. There will now always be a before and after reference point in your life's timeline, both on the clock and the calendar. Your head and heart will remember the date, the time, the clock, the sounds around you. And initially, this may be very finely tuned, very finely focused. This may show up as every Wednesday being a trigger. It may show up as every 2:05 a.m. will be a trigger. The beeps in the elevator, for me, it's a smell of the sub sandwiches that they sold in the hospital lobby. But after some time and some grief work, these points may generalize and soften. They will reference the season. They will reference the month. They will reference the before and after the diagnosis, before and after the death, or before and after the move to hospice. Each of these serve as a measure of how important and how influential this loss is in your life. So while the measurements became wider with time, they became more diffuse. It will always be a reference point in your life, the before and after. Truth number 2. Grief can be crazy making. Just when we are at our emotional worst, our brain kicks in to protect us. And this may create a very large gap between our brain and our heart. And this gap is an invitation to feeling as though we are losing our minds because the gap is real. Our body may be experiencing physical challenges, health challenges, gut issues, aches and pains, insomnia, lowered immunity, increased stress hormones. Our mind experiences a loss of focus, problem solving, and ability to remember. So know that if you are experiencing any of these states, you are not losing your mind. You are grieving. Truth number 3. Grief can be full of judgment, self-judgment in terms of I should be further along or coping better, judgment of others and their support. Why don't they know what I need? They love me. Why don't they know best how to support me? And also judgment of others' grief experiences. I hear statements all the time such as, well, at least they had 6 years together. At least you got to hear your baby's heartbeat. At least they are out of pain. She lived a good long life. How are you so traumatized? It was a dog, not a child. Get on with it. My little pop psychology theory about this is that our own grief is our own worst grief. And sometimes it shows up that we need to diminish others' grief in order to magnify or justify our own grief. This happens, I theorize, because our own grief is not likely being supported. We feel the need to minimize others' grief in order to maximize our own grief to reflect our experience or the impact of our grief, of our loss. I wonder, have you ever been on the receiving end of this, of your grief being minimized, that someone else's grief was worse than yours? It's a very common experience, so please let us know in the comments below. Truth number 4, grief can be very lonely. I hear all the time how so many people pledge support, whatever you need, let me know how I can help, I'm here for you, in those early acute days. However, once the service is over, or once you've gone back to work, or you've become pregnant again, or you find a new partner, those around you seem to disappear as support for your grief. They can step in and out of your loss. You can't. This loss will change you and how you live and love and trust. You will experience changes or losses in relationships with both friends and family. Truth number 5. You will struggle and need to practice acceptance. Acceptance is one of the ugly tasks of grief. But how do you accept this loss? So for some, it will mean telling the story from the rooftops. It may mean telling and retelling to anyone who will listen. including the cashier at the grocery store, the hairdresser, the bartender. It may mean not sleeping so that you don't have to awaken into the awful truth each morning. You will see your loved ones in crowds or hear them in the room next until you remember that this isn't actually possible. Rehearsing acceptance is critical and will feel wildly unsettling all at the same time. And truth number 6, losing a loved one is like the pebble in the pond. There is the loss, and then there are the ripples around it. And these are termed secondary losses. Secondary losses are largely unanticipated and have a profound impact both short and long term on your loss. Finances, future plans, housing, goals, support systems, the ability to love again, the ability to trust again, the ability to take risks, health determinants, hypervigilance, employment, education, family planning, daily routines, dance partners, the in-laws as family, or access to the grandchildren. There are so many secondary losses. Can you identify which secondary loss caught you completely unawares? Let's know how common this is by leaving a comment below. In this video, I've shared some thoughts about my truths of grief. What can you add? What have I missed? Please add to our community by sharing your thoughts below in the comment section. Please consider becoming a member of our online supportive community called the Grievolution Collective. There'll be a short video that follows. And as you work to find your truths of your grief, I send to you kind thoughts, kind words, and a kind heart. Thank you so much, and take good care.